The Zalarian cargo ship drifted through the outer edge of the Helix Nebula, its hull gleaming with the distinctive blue-green sheen of their species' biometal construction. Captain Thylex stood on the bridge, all four of his arms crossed in a gesture of deep concern as he studied the navigation charts floating in the holographic display before him. "Adjust course by 12 degrees, Thylex commanded, his crystalline voice resonating through the bridge. "We must avoid the human trade routes at all costs." His navigator, a younger Zalarian named Kryn, manipulated the controls with practiced efficiency. The ship's trajectory shifted, taking them further from the established shipping lanes that connected the human colonies in this sector. It would add 3 cycles to their journey, but Thylex considered it worth the delay. The Zalarians had good reason to avoid humanity. While not openly hostile, humans had earned a reputation throughout the galaxy that made most species nervous. They came from a world that other civilizations classified as a Class 12 death world, a planet so hostile that it should have been impossible for intelligent life to evolve there. Yet somehow, humans had not only survived but thrived in an environment filled with predators, diseases, natural disasters, and extreme weather conditions. This harsh origin had shaped them into beings that other species found deeply unsettling. Humans were persistent predators who could pursue prey for hours without rest. They could survive injuries that would kill most other sentients. They consumed substances that were toxic to nearly every other known species, some even for pleasure. Their military tactics were considered brutal and excessive by galactic standards. Most disturbing of all, they seemed to form emotional bonds with anything, including their machinery and weapons, which they often named and talked to as if they were alive. "Captain," the communications officer interrupted Thylex's thoughts. "I'm detecting unusual energy readings from the cargo hold." Thylex turned his primary eyes toward the officer while keeping his secondary pair focused on the navigation display. "What kind of readings?" "The stasis units are showing fluctuations. It appears the Chiralian specimens are becoming unstable." A wave of concern rippled through Thylex's bioluminescent patches. The Chiralian specimens were their cargo, rare medicinal organisms worth a fortune to the right buyer. They were also notoriously difficult to transport, requiring precise environmental conditions to remain viable. If they lost the shipment, the company would be ruined. "Send a maintenance team to investigate," Thylex ordered, "and increase power to the stasis fields by 15%. The ship continued its lonely journey through the nebula, the swirling gases outside creating patterns of light and shadow across the viewports. Thylex had chosen this route specifically because it was rarely traveled. The nebula's interference made long-range communications difficult, and the lack of nearby systems meant they were unlikely to encounter other vessels. 3 hours passed before the first real sign of trouble appeared. The maintenance team had managed to stabilize the stasis units, but their relief was short-lived. Without warning, the ship lurched violently to one side, throwing several crew members to the deck. "Report!" Thylex demanded, gripping the command chair with all 4 hands. "Massive gravitic distortion off the starboard bow," the sensor operator responded, her voice tight with fear. "It appeared out of nowhere." On the main viewer, space itself seemed to ripple and tear. A ship emerged from the distortion, not through hyperspace or any recognized form of faster-than-light travel, but through what appeared to be a deliberate manipulation of space-time itself. The vessel was unlike anything in the Zalarian database. Its hull was black as the void between stars, covered in geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. Energy crackled along its surface in patterns that defied conventional physics. "By the ancient pools," Kryn whispered. "What is that thing?" Before anyone could respond, the alien vessel opened fire. Beams of twisted energy lashed out, striking the Zalarian ship's shields. The protective barriers, designed to withstand asteroid impacts and plasma storms, crumbled like tissue paper. The cargo ship shuddered under the assault, warning klaxons blaring throughout every deck. "Evasive maneuvers!" Thylex shouted. "Return fire!" The Zalarian ship's weapons powered up, sending pulses of concentrated plasma toward their attacker. The shots simply disappeared before reaching their target, absorbed by the strange geometric patterns covering the enemy vessel. Another barrage of twisted energy struck them, this time penetrating the hull. Thylex could hear the screams of crew members in the affected sections over the communication system. "Shields at 18% and falling," someone reported. "Hull breaches on decks 3 through 7. We're venting atmosphere." "Emergency bulkheads are sealing," another voice added. "But we've lost contact with 30 crew members in the affected areas." Thylex's mind raced through their options. They couldn't fight. Their weapons were useless against this enemy. They couldn't run. Their engines were damaged, and the enemy ship was faster. In all his years as a captain, he had never felt so helpless. Another strike rocked the ship. This time, the bridge lights flickered and died, replaced by the dim red glow of emergency power. Smoke filled the air from overloaded circuits, and Thylex could taste the metallic tang of ionized particles. "Main power is offline," the engineering officer reported. "Backup systems are failing. Life support is down to 40% capacity." The enemy ship moved closer, its alien hull seeming to shift and change as they watched. Thylex could see weapon ports opening along its surface, preparing for what would surely be the killing blow. His crew looked to him for answers, for hope. But he had none to give. "Communications," he said quietly. "Prepare an emergency distress beacon, wide-band transmission, all frequencies." "But, Captain," the communications officer protested, "the only ships that might hear us in this region are—" "I know," Thylex interrupted, "but we have no choice. Send the message." The officer's hands moved over the controls, encoding their location, situation, and a plea for help into a powerful signal that would broadcast in all directions. It was their last hope, though Thylex knew it was likely futile. Even if someone heard them, they were far from any inhabited systems. Help would take too long to arrive. The enemy ship fired again. This time, the shots targeted their engines. The Zalarian vessel lurched as its propulsion systems died, leaving them drifting helplessly in space. Emergency lights failed across multiple decks. In the failing gravity, crew members struggled to remain at their posts. "Captain," Kryn said, his voice barely above a whisper, "I'm reading massive energy buildup in the alien vessel. They're preparing to fire their main weapon." Thylex closed all 4 of his eyes, preparing for the end. He had failed his crew, failed his mission. In trying to avoid the danger of human space, he had led them into something far worse. He wondered if anyone would ever know what happened to them, if their distress signal would be heard by anyone who cared. The bridge crew waited in tense silence as the alien ship's energy readings climbed higher and higher. The geometric patterns on its hull began to pulse with an ominous light. This was it. The final moment. Then, impossibly, the enemy vessel stopped charging its weapon. Its energy patterns fluctuated wildly, as if in confusion or alarm. On the sensors, Thylex could see the ship beginning to turn away from them. "What's happening?" someone asked. "Why aren't they firing?" The sensor operator's hands flew over her controls, trying to make sense of the readings. "Captain, I'm detecting massive subspace distortions forming all around us, multiple contacts incoming." "More of them?" Thylex asked, despair filling his voice. "No, sir. These signatures are different. They're... Oh, by the ancient pools. They're human." Space erupted with light as a dozen ships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation around the alien attacker. Thylex recognized the aggressive angular design of human warships, vessels built not for beauty or efficiency, but for one purpose: destruction. The lead ship was massive, easily 3 times the size of the alien vessel, its hull bristling with weapon emplacements. The human fleet moved with coordinated precision, surrounding the alien ship in seconds. Communication channels crackled to life as a human voice broadcasted on all frequencies. Unidentified vessel. This is Admiral Chen of the Terran Defense Force battleship Perseverance. You have attacked a civilian ship in neutral space. Stand down immediately, or we will open fire. You have 10 seconds to comply. The alien ship responded by firing at the nearest human vessel. The twisted energy beams struck the human ship's shields, causing them to flare brilliantly but hold firm. The humans didn't wait for the full 10 seconds. All ships, weapons free, light them up. What followed was a display of firepower that made Thylex's crew stare in shock and awe. The human ships opened fire simultaneously, filling space with a devastating barrage of plasma bolts, kinetic rounds, and missile swarms. The alien vessel's strange defenses, which had so easily absorbed the Zalarians' attacks, buckled under the concentrated assault. The humans fought with a coordination and ferocity that was terrifying to witness. They didn't just attack, they dissected their enemy with surgical precision. Smaller human ships darted in and out, targeting specific systems. Larger vessels hammered the aliens' shields with sustained bombardment. Missile frigates launched swarms of guided projectiles that seemed to adapt to the enemy's defenses in real time. "Look at them," Kryn breathed. "They're not just fighting. They're enjoying it." Indeed, over the open communication channels, Thylex could hear the human crews coordinating their attacks with an enthusiasm that seemed inappropriate for such a deadly situation. They called out targets, celebrated successful hits, and even seemed to be competing for who could inflict the most damage. The alien ship fought back desperately, its weapons lashing out in all directions. Several human vessels took hits, their shields flaring. One smaller ship lost its port engine and began to drift. But even as escape pods launched, its crew kept firing with their remaining weapons. The humans didn't retreat, didn't hesitate. They pressed their attack with relentless determination. Within minutes, the alien vessel was crippled, its strange hull cracked and sparked, venting atmosphere and debris. Its weapons fell silent one by one. Finally, with a massive explosion that lit up the nebula, the ship broke apart. The human fleet continued firing until nothing remained but scattered fragments. "Terran fleet to Zalarian vessel," the human admiral's voice came over the communication system. "This is Admiral Chen. Are you in need of assistance?" Thylex found his voice. "This is Captain Thylex. We have suffered heavy damage, multiple hull breaches, life support failing. We require immediate aid." "Understood, Captain. We're dispatching rescue shuttles and engineering teams now. Hang tight. We've got you." True to their word, human shuttles began launching from the larger warships within seconds. Thylex watched in amazement as they approached with remarkable speed and precision. His communications officer looked up with confusion on her face. "Captain, the humans are asking for detailed schematics of our ship. They want to know our atmosphere composition, gravity requirements, and dietary restrictions." "Give them whatever they need," Thylex ordered. Over the next few hours, Thylex witnessed human efficiency that both impressed and unnerved him. They swarmed over his damaged ship like insects, but insects with purpose and skill. Human engineers worked alongside Zalarian crew members, using portable equipment to seal hull breaches. Their medics treated the wounded with a gentleness that seemed at odds with the violence they had displayed in battle. A human officer, introducing herself as Commander Rodriguez, coordinated the rescue efforts from the Zalarian bridge. She was smaller than Thylex had expected, with the dark hair and brown skin common to humans from Earth's southern continents. What struck him most was how calmly she handled the chaos around her. "Your people work fast," Thylex commented, watching a human engineer literally hold a hull plate in place with his bare hands while another welded it. Rodriguez smiled. an expression Thylex had learned indicated human amusement or pleasure. "We've had a lot of practice with emergency repairs. Comes with living on a death world. Things are always trying to kill you. So you learn to fix problems quickly." "Commander, may I ask how you arrived so quickly? Our distress signal was sent barely an hour ago." "We've been tracking that alien vessel for weeks," Rodriguez explained. "It's been attacking ships along the edge of human space. When we detected its signature in the nebula, we moved to intercept. Your distress signal just confirmed what we already suspected. It had found new prey. You came to save us even though we were avoiding your space." Rodriguez's smile widened. "Captain, spite might be a human emotion, but so is compassion. You needed help. We were in a position to provide it. Everything else is just details." As the hours passed, the human efficiency continued to amaze the Zalarian crew. They didn't just patch the ship enough to limp to port, they conducted repairs that would have taken a Zalarian crew days to complete. When they discovered the failing stasis units in the cargo hold, a human scientist named Dr. Park took one look at the Carillion specimens and immediately began adjusting the containment parameters. "You're familiar with Carillion organisms?" Thylex asked in surprise. "Oh, yes," Dr. Park replied cheerfully, making adjustments that stabilized the fluctuating energy readings. "Fascinating little things. We've been trying to cultivate them on Mars, but the radiation levels aren't quite right. Mind if I take some tissue samples? I think I know how to improve our growth medium." By the time the major repairs were completed, the Zalarian ship was not only functional, but in better condition than before the attack. Human engineers had upgraded several systems, their medics had saved all but 3 of the wounded crew members, and they had even managed to save 90% of the valuable cargo. Admiral Chen invited Thylex aboard the Perseverance for a formal meeting. The Zalarian captain accepted, though not without trepidation. The human battleship was everything he had feared. A vessel designed for war, with weapons that could crack moons and armor that could withstand supernovas. Yet the crew he encountered seemed remarkably cheerful, greeting him with what appeared to be genuine friendliness. The Admiral's ready room was surprisingly comfortable, decorated with artifacts from Earth and various human colonies. Chen himself was an older human with gray hair and laugh lines around his eyes. He offered Thylex a seat designed to accommodate his non-human physiology and a beverage he assured him was safe for Zalarian consumption. "I wanted to thank you personally for responding to our distress call," Thylex began. "No thanks necessary," Chen replied, "though I am curious why you were taking such a roundabout route. This nebula isn't exactly on the way to anywhere." Thylex's bioluminescent patches flickered with embarrassment. "We were avoiding human trade routes." "Ah." Chen nodded with understanding. "We Deathworlders do have quite the reputation." "I meant no offense." "None taken," Chen interrupted with a wave of his hand. "To be honest, we've cultivated that reputation somewhat deliberately. It helps keep the real nasties at bay. Like our geometric friend out there." "Do you know what that ship was?" Chen's expression darkened. "We have theories. There have been 17 similar attacks in the past 4 months, all along the edges of inhabited space. Ships destroyed, crews killed or taken. We've been hunting them. But this is the first time we've managed to intercept one during an attack. Why did it flee when you arrived? Its defenses seemed formidable." "Formidable against energy weapons, yes. But humans learned long ago that sometimes the best solution to a problem is to hit it really hard with something solid. Those geometric patterns on their hull? Great at dispersing energy. Not so great against a railgun slug traveling at 10% light speed." Thylex absorbed this information. The humans had analyzed an unknown enemy, determined its weaknesses, and adapted their tactics accordingly. It was precisely the kind of strategic thinking that made them so dangerous. "Captain Thylex," Chen continued, "I'd like to make you an offer. Your ship is repaired. But that alien vessel sent out a transmission before we destroyed it. We believe it was calling for reinforcements. You could continue on your original route, but you'd be vulnerable if more of them show up. What's the alternative? Travel with our fleet to Starbase Sigma-7. It's a human facility, but it's open to all allied species. You could complete your cargo delivery there. I guarantee you'll get a fair price for those Kyrillian specimens. More importantly, you'll be under human protection until we can deal with this threat. The offer was generous, but Thylex hesitated. Accepting would mean trusting the humans, entering their space voluntarily, and potentially changing how his people viewed humanity. I notice your crew worked well with our engineers, Chen added. Perhaps it's time to reconsider those old fears. We're not the monsters some make us out to be. We're just survivors who've learned that sometimes the best way to protect what we care about is to be scarier than the things that go bump in the night. Thylex thought about his crew, about how efficiently the humans had saved them. He thought about the alien ship and how quickly the humans had destroyed it. Most of all, he thought about the young human engineer who had risked his life to seal a hull breach, laughing and joking with the Zalarian crew as he worked. I accept your offer, Admiral, and thank you. Chen smiled. Welcome to human space, Captain. I think you'll find we're full of surprises. The journey to Starbase Sigma-7 proved to be an education in human military culture that Captain Thylex would never forget. The Zalarian cargo ship, now designated Protected Asset 7 in human military communications, traveled at the center of the human fleet formation. Thylex stood on his bridge, watching the human vessels maintain perfect positioning, despite the gravitational eddies and radiation bursts common to this region of space. Commander Rodriguez had remained aboard as liaison officer, and she now stood beside Thylex's command chair, casually sipping from a thermal container that released steam, with an aroma that made several Zalarian crew members edge away. Coffee, she explained, noticing Thylex's curious gaze. Caffeine helps keep us alert. Want some? I've heard of this substance, Thylex replied carefully. Isn't it a stimulant powerful enough to kill most species? Rodriguez laughed, a sound Thylex was beginning to associate with human amusement rather than aggression. Probably. But then again, we also eat chocolate for fun, and that's toxic to half the galaxy. Deathworld evolution has its perks. Through the viewports, Thylex watched a pair of human fighters execute a maneuver that should have been impossible. They spiraled around each other at velocities that would have liquefied most species, their pilots somehow maintaining consciousness and control despite the gravitational forces involved. Your pilots seem to be playing? Training exercise, Rodriguez corrected. But yeah, they're probably having fun too. Humans get bored easily. A bored human is a human who starts taking things apart to see how they work, and nobody wants that on a warship. As if to emphasize her point, a communication came through from one of the escort destroyers. Bridge, this is Sergeant Martinez in engineering. We've successfully increased engine efficiency by 12%. Outstanding, Sergeant, Rodriguez replied. How? Well, ma'am, we noticed the plasma flow regulators were operating within normal parameters, so we decided to see what would happen if we reversed the polarity on every third coupling and rerouted the excess through the auxiliary cooling system. Rodriguez sighed and pinched the bridge of her nose. Sergeant, did you just jury-rig our engines because you were bored? The technical manual says, do not attempt, ma'am. It doesn't say, cannot be done. Big difference. Just try not to blow us up, Martinez. Roger that, ma'am. Martinez out. Thylex's crystalline voice carried a note of concern. Is such experimentation common among your people? Unfortunately, yes. Humans have this annoying trait of looking at safety warnings as suggestions rather than rules. It's probably why we survived our homeworld. Our ancestors were the ones crazy enough to look at fire and think, I bet I could use that, instead of running away. Over the next several days, Thylex observed more examples of human ingenuity that bordered on insanity. When a cosmic storm forced the fleet to take shelter behind a rogue planet, human engineers used the delay to conduct improvements on various ships. By the time they emerged, 3 vessels had unauthorized upgrades. 2 had been repainted with elaborate nose art, and 1 destroyer had somehow acquired a hydroponic garden in its cargo bay. The Zalarian crew, initially terrified of their human protectors, began to warm to them. It started with small gestures, a human medic teaching a Zalarian cook how to prepare food safe for both species, an engineer showing young Zalarian technicians tricks for improving power efficiency, a weapons specialist organizing an interspecies gaming tournament that had crews from multiple ships competing via communication links. Kryn, the young navigator, had become particularly fascinated with human culture. He spent his off-duty hours in conversation with human crew members, learning about their homeworld and its terrifying history. "They have predators called bears," Kryn reported to Thylex with wide-eyed amazement. "Massive creatures with claws and teeth. And do you know what humans did? They made stuffed toy versions for their children to sleep with." "Psychological conditioning," Rodriguez explained when Thylex asked about it. "If you grow up cuddling representations of dangerous things, you're less likely to freeze when you encounter actual danger. Plus, teddy bears are adorable." The paradox of humans, capable of devastating violence while maintaining an almost childlike sense of wonder and affection, continued to perplex Thylex. He watched them name their weapons, paint faces on maintenance robots, and adopt a strange fungal growth they found on an asteroid as a mascot for the fleet. On the 4th day of their journey, the human vigilance proved its worth. Alarms shrieked across the fleet as sensors detected the same type of spatial distortions that had preceded the geometric ship's arrival. "All hands, battle stations," Admiral Chen's voice echoed through every ship. "Looks like our friends want a rematch. Rodriguez, get our Zalarian allies to their emergency positions." "With respect, Admiral," Thylex interrupted, "my crew would prefer to remain at our posts. We may not be warriors, but this is our ship." There was a pause before Chen replied, "Understood, Captain. Welcome to the fight." 3 geometric ships emerged from twisted space, their hulls pulsing with the same reality-bending patterns as their destroyed sibling. They appeared in a triangular formation, clearly having learned from the previous encounter. The human fleet responded with practiced efficiency. Ships moved into combat formations with a fluidity that seemed almost organic. Fighter squadrons launched in waves, their pilots whooping with excitement over the communication channels. The larger vessels brought their weapons online, creating overlapping fields of fire that left no escape routes. "Here's where it gets interesting," Rodriguez commented, her casual tone at odds with the tension of the moment. The geometric ships opened fire simultaneously, their beams of twisted energy seeking targets throughout the human fleet. This time, however, the humans were prepared. Ships activated specialized shielding that seemed to refract the enemy's attacks, sending the energy beams off at wild angles. Several human vessels deployed clouds of metallic chaff that interfered with the geometric targeting systems. "Is that—" Thylex stared at the tactical display. "Are they using primitive countermeasures against advanced energy weapons?" "If it's stupid, but it works, it's not stupid," Rodriguez replied with a grin. "Those geometric patterns need clear line of sight to be effective. Hard to maintain a lock when there's a cloud of reflective particles in the way." The lead geometric ship attempted to close distance with the Perseverance, perhaps hoping to overwhelm the battleship's defenses at close range. It was a fatal mistake. The human vessel's point defense systems came alive, filling space with a devastating barrage of projectile fire. Railgun slugs, missile swarms, and even what appeared to be improvised shrapnel charges hammered the alien vessel. Meanwhile, human fighters swarmed the other 2 geometric ships like angry insects. They attacked in coordinated waves, some drawing fire, while others struck at vulnerable points. Thylex watched one pilot manually fly their damaged fighter directly into an enemy weapon port, ejecting at the last second as their ship became a guided missile. Did that pilot just... Ramming speed is a time-honored human tradition, Rodriguez said. Don't worry, I saw their escape pod launch. They'll be fine. The battle raged for 20 minutes, but the outcome was never truly in doubt. The geometric ships, for all their advanced technology, seemed unprepared for the sheer variety and creativity of human combat tactics. When one ship tried to retreat, human vessels had already moved to block its escape route. When another attempted to overload its weapon systems for a devastating final attack, human engineers somehow hacked its systems and caused a premature detonation. The last geometric ship, heavily damaged and venting atmosphere, tried one final gambit. It began to pulse with an ominous red light, energy readings spiking beyond anything previously recorded. "It's going to self-destruct," someone reported. "The explosion could take out half the fleet." "Not today." Admiral Chen's voice was cold. "All ships, execute Omega Protocol." Thylex watched in awe as every human vessel fired simultaneously. Not at the geometric ship, but at the space around it. Specialized torpedoes detonated in a precise pattern, their explosions not meant to damage, but to create a specific effect. Space itself seemed to warp and fold, creating an impromptu containment field around the enemy vessel. The geometric ship exploded with tremendous force, but the blast was contained within the artificial pocket of twisted space. The human fleet had literally trapped an explosion powerful enough to destroy a moon, holding it until the energy dissipated harmlessly. "How?" Thylex's voice was barely a whisper. "Theoretical physics applied practically," Rodriguez explained. "We figured if they could twist space to travel, we could twist space for other purposes. Humans are nothing if not adaptable." As the debris settled and damage reports came in, Thylex was amazed to learn that the human fleet had suffered no ship losses. Several vessels were damaged, dozens of fighters would need repairs, and there were injuries throughout the fleet, but no fatalities. The humans treated their victory not with grim satisfaction, but with the same enthusiasm they might show for winning a sporting event. "Good work, everyone," Admiral Chen broadcasted. "Drinks are on me when we reach Sigma 7. Martinez, that trick with the engine modifications? Outstanding work. We clocked an 18% speed increase during combat maneuvers." "Just wait until you see what I can do with the weapon systems, Admiral." "Let's save that for when we're not protecting civilians, Sergeant." The rest of the journey proceeded without major incident, though Thylex noted that the humans never relaxed their vigilance. Regular drills kept the crews sharp, patrols maintained constant surveillance, and every anomaly was investigated thoroughly. It was exhausting to watch, yet the humans seemed to thrive on it. 2 days before reaching Starbase Sigma 7, Thylex received an unexpected visitor. Dr. Park, the scientist who had saved their Carillion specimens, requested a meeting. She arrived carrying a sealed case and wearing an expression of barely contained excitement. "Captain, I hope you don't mind, but I've been working on something. Remember those tissue samples I took from your cargo?" "Of course. Have you made progress with your Mars cultivation project?" "Better than that." Dr. Park opened the case, revealing a small container filled with a bioluminescent substance. "I've created a hybrid growth medium that combines Carillion biological properties with extremophile bacteria from Earth. The applications are staggering: medical, agricultural, even potential terraforming uses." Thylex examined the sample with growing amazement. The implications of such a breakthrough were enormous. "This could revolutionize medicine across known space." "Exactly. And I wanted to propose a partnership. Your people have the expertise with Carillion organisms. We have the Deathworld biology that makes them thrive in extreme conditions. Together, we could create something that benefits everyone." You would share this knowledge freely? Dr. Park's expression grew serious. Captain, humans didn't survive Earth by hoarding resources. We survived by cooperation, by sharing knowledge and protecting each other. Yes, we're dangerous when threatened, but we'd much rather be friends. Later that evening, Thylex called a meeting of his senior staff. The conference room was crowded, with several human liaison officers joining their Zalarian counterparts. The past days had broken down many barriers, and the two species now worked together with surprising efficiency. I've been thinking about our future, Thylex began. This journey has shown me that our isolation policy may be outdated. The humans saved us, Kryn said simply. They didn't have to, but they did. They've also shared technology, knowledge, and resources, the chief engineer added. My department has learned more about field mechanics in the past week than in the previous decade. The medical officer nodded. Their trauma techniques alone have revolutionized our emergency procedures, and they adapted their methods to our physiology without hesitation. Thylex looked around the room, seeing agreement in the bioluminescent patterns of his crew. Then I propose we recommend to the Zalarian Trade Council that we establish formal relations with humanity. Not just trade agreements, but cultural exchange, technological partnerships, perhaps even military cooperation. The Council will be concerned about human aggression, someone pointed out. Then we'll tell them the truth, Thylex replied. Yes, humans are dangerous. They're also loyal, creative, and generous. They're the species you want as allies when the universe throws its worst at you. Commander Rodriguez, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. If it helps, I can arrange for a Zalarian delegation to visit Earth. See our homeworld for yourselves. Fair warning, though. Australia might be a bit much for first-time visitors. What's wrong with Australia? Kryn asked innocently. The human liaison officers exchanged glances and laughed. Everything in Australia is trying to kill you, even the plants, one explained. It's Earth's way of keeping humans humble. As the meeting concluded and plans were made for future cooperation, Thylex found himself on the observation deck with Rodriguez. They watched the stars streak by, each lost in their own thoughts. You know, Rodriguez said eventually, a year ago, if someone had told me we'd be escorting a Zalarian ship and planning joint ventures, I'd have called them crazy. Your people's reputation for isolation is almost as strong as our reputation for being dangerous. Perhaps both our species have been victims of our own myths, Thylex suggested. Maybe. Or maybe we just needed the right crisis to bring us together. Nothing like a common enemy to make people realize they have more similarities than differences. Is that the human approach to diplomacy? Wait for something to attack, then make friends while fighting it off? Rodriguez chuckled. It's worked so far, though I'll admit we'd prefer less exciting methods of making allies. A communication alert interrupted their conversation. Admiral Chen's image appeared on the deck's display screen. Captain Thylex, Commander Rodriguez thought you'd want to know. We've just received word from Sigma-7. News of our encounter has spread. There are representatives from 12 species waiting to meet with you, Captain. They want to know more about the geometric ships, but they also want to know about your experience with humans. Thylex felt a ripple of uncertainty. His report could influence how a significant portion of the galaxy viewed humanity. It was a heavy responsibility. What will you tell them? Chen asked, his expression carefully neutral. The truth, Thylex replied. That humans are exactly as dangerous as everyone believes. They're also exactly the allies you want when facing the unknown dangers of space. They'll face impossible odds to protect those who can't protect themselves. They'll share their knowledge and resources freely, and they'll do it all while making jokes and naming their equipment. Chen smiled. That's probably the most accurate description of humanity I've ever heard. Thank you, Captain. As the communication ended, Thylex turned to Rodriguez. One thing still puzzles me about your species. Only one? Why do you form such strong emotional attachments to inanimate objects? I've seen your crew members talking to their weapons, naming their tools, even apologizing to doors when they malfunction. Rodriguez thought for a moment. I think it's because we evolved as tool users on a world that was constantly trying to kill us. Our survival often depended on our equipment working perfectly. If you treat your tools like trusted allies, you're more likely to maintain them properly. Plus, when you're alone on a hostile world, even an imaginary friend is better than no friend at all. So it's a survival mechanism that became a cultural trait? Pretty much. Though if you ask the engineers, they'll swear their engines actually run better when you talk nicely to them. Thylex considered this. Every human quirk, every strange behavior seemed to trace back to their origins on Earth. They were shaped by their death world, just as surely as Zalarians were shaped by their peaceful ocean planet. The difference was that humans had taken their harsh origins and transformed them into strengths. Starbase Sigma-7 appeared on the long-range sensors the next day, a massive structure that exemplified human engineering. It wasn't beautiful by Zalarian standards, too many sharp angles and obvious weapon emplacements, but it was undeniably impressive. Ships from dozens of species docked at its ports, a testament to humanity's growing influence in the galaxy. "Welcome to human space," Rodriguez said as they approached. "Try not to be too alarmed by the welcome party." "Welcome party?" On cue, fighters launched from the station, but instead of taking defensive positions, they began performing elaborate aerial displays. Trails of colored smoke painted patterns in space, while the pilots executed maneuvers that defied physics and common sense. Is this normal? For humans? Absolutely. We celebrate surviving dangerous situations. It's another death world thing. If you lived through something that should have killed you, you throw a party to prove you're still alive. The Zalarian ship docked at Sigma-7, amid cheers from gathered crowds. Humans and aliens alike had assembled to witness the arrival of the ship that had survived the geometric attackers. News of the battle had spread quickly, and everyone wanted to hear the story firsthand. As Thylex prepared to disembark, he reflected on how much had changed since that terrifying moment when the first geometric ship had appeared. He had started this journey trying to avoid humans, seeing them as dangerous and unpredictable. He wasn't wrong. They were dangerous and unpredictable. But they were also brave, loyal, creative, and surprisingly kind. "Captain," Rodriguez called from the airlock, "ready to meet your public?" Thylex straightened all four of his arms, his bioluminescent patches glowing with determination. "Lead the way, Commander. It's time for the galaxy to hear a different story about humanity." The conference hall on Starbase Sigma-7 buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from across the galaxy gathered to hear Captain Thylex's report. The Zalarian captain stood at the center podium, his four arms steady despite the weight of hundreds of eyes upon him. In the audience sat diplomats, military officials, traders, and scientists from species ranging from the crystalline Sharodi to the gaseous nebula dancers. Admiral Chen occupied a seat in the human delegation, having insisted on attending as an observer rather than a participant. "This is your story to tell," he had told Thylex earlier. "We humans have tried explaining ourselves for decades. Maybe they'll listen better to someone who experienced our help firsthand." Thylex began his presentation with the attack, displaying sensor recordings of the geometric ship's emergence and its devastating assault on his vessel. Gasps echoed through the hall as the audience watched the Zalarian ship's shields crumble under the alien weaponry. "We thought we were finished," Thylex said, his crystalline voice carrying across the chamber. "Our weapons were useless. Our shields failed. In our fear of human space, we had ventured into regions where no help could reach us. Or so we believed." He played the next recording, the arrival of the human fleet. The audience watched in stunned silence as the human ships dropped from hyperspace in perfect formation, surrounding the attacker with practiced precision. Several representatives shifted uncomfortably as they witnessed the brutal efficiency with which the humans destroyed the geometric vessel. "Terrifying, isn't it?" Thylex asked. "That's what I thought too, until I realized something important. That violence, that frightening capability for destruction, it wasn't directed at us. It was used to protect us." A Villani diplomat raised a feathered appendage. "But surely such aggression poses a threat to peaceful species?" "I thought the same," Thylex admitted. "Then I spent a week among them. Let me show you what human aggression really looks like." The display shifted to security footage from the Zalarian ship during repairs. The audience watched human engineers working alongside Zalarian crew members, sharing jokes and techniques. They saw human medics treating injured Zalarians with careful attention to their unique physiology. Most surprisingly, they witnessed human soldiers playing an improvised game with Zalarian children who had been terrified during the attack, making them laugh with ridiculous faces and gentle antics. "This is Sergeant Thompson," Thylex narrated as the display showed a massive human marine. "He single-handedly held a hull breach closed for 7 minutes while repairs were completed, suffering severe radiation burns in the process. 2 hours later, he was teaching my nephew how to fold paper animals." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. The dichotomy was difficult to reconcile, beings capable of such violence showing such gentleness. "The humans have a saying," Thylex continued. "We are dangerous so others don't have to be." During our journey to this station, we encountered 3 more geometric ships. The humans didn't hesitate. They placed themselves between us and danger, fought with everything they had, and asked for nothing in return except the chance to learn about our culture and share their own. A skeptical voice rose from the Korvath delegation. "Pretty words, Captain. But what do the humans want? No species acts without self-interest." Before Thylex could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the station. The conference hall's main display automatically switched to external sensors, showing dozens of spatial distortions forming around Sigma-7. Geometric ships emerged in numbers that dwarfed previous encounters, not 3 or 4, but an entire fleet. "All personnel to battle stations," Admiral Chen's voice cut through the panic, calm and authoritative. "This is not a drill. Conference attendees, please proceed to emergency shelters. Human military personnel implement Defense Protocol 7. Instead of evacuating," Thylex moved to the observation window. The other representatives, after a moment's hesitation, joined him. What they witnessed next would be recorded in history books across the galaxy. Human ships throughout the station launched with impossible speed. Not just military vessels, but merchant ships, mining craft, and even personal shuttles. Every human-operated vessel seemed to transform from peaceful craft to weapon of war in seconds. Cargo haulers deployed hidden weapon systems. Mining ships turned their industrial lasers into cutting beams. Even the station itself revealed massive cannon emplacements that had been disguised as communication arrays. "By the 7 moons," a Practori merchant whispered. "They're all armed, every single human vessel." "Of course we are," a human trader said matter-of-factly, checking his personal communicator. "You don't survive Earth without being prepared. Excuse me, I need to get to my ship. She may be a freighter, but she's got teeth." The geometric fleet opened fire, their twisted beams striking the station's shields. The barriers held, reinforced by overlapping fields from the surrounding human ships. The response was immediate and coordinated. Humans didn't wait for orders or debate tactics. They simply acted, each ship finding its place in a defense pattern that seemed almost instinctive. Thylex watched fighter pilots launch in vessels held together by what looked like improvised repairs and determination. He saw a luxury yacht ram a geometric ship that was targeting a refugee transport. A mining barge used its tractor beams to grab debris and hurl it at enemy vessels with devastating effect. "They're insane," someone breathed. "No," Thylex corrected. "They're human." The battle raged for hours. The geometric fleet had brought overwhelming numbers, but they had made a crucial error. They had attacked a human station, a place where humans had gathered not just their military might, but their civilians, their families, their children. And there was nothing more dangerous than a human protecting their young. A geometric ship broke through the defensive line, heading directly for the station's civilian quarter. Before military vessels could intercept, a battered cargo ship placed itself in the weapon's path. The beam, meant to kill thousands, instead struck a single vessel, whose pilot broadcast a defiant laugh before his ship exploded. His name was Marcus Webb. Admiral Chen's voice came over the station-wide communication. "Remember it. Helm, bring us about. All ships, form up on the Perseverance. Time to take this fight to them." The human fleet reformed with terrifying precision. Where before they had been defending, now they attacked. The geometric ships, for all their advanced technology, seemed unprepared for the sheer fury of the human assault. Human vessels didn't just fight, they adapted, improvised, and overcame. Thylex watched one destroyer lose its main guns and respond by overloading its engines, turning the entire ship into a guided missile. Fighter pilots with damaged vessels used them as kinetic weapons. An engineering ship normally used for construction deployed its industrial fabricators to literally build explosive drones mid-battle. "Look," a Zalarian aide pointed to the tactical display. "The other species—" Ships from the various delegations were powering up. The Villani cruiser that had questioned human aggression moved to support a human frigate under heavy fire. Korvath traders activated their defensive systems, adding their firepower to the human defense. Even the pacifist Yelani medical ships emerged from dock, their crews ready to retrieve escape pods and treat the wounded. "You asked what humans want," Thylex said to the Korvath representative. "They want what any species wants: to survive, to thrive, to protect what they care about. The difference is they're willing to extend that protection to others, even those who fear them." The tide of battle turned decisively when human reinforcements arrived. Not military vessels, but civilian ships responding to the distress call. Freighters, passenger liners, private yachts, industrial vessels. Every human within range had come to fight. They arrived not in military formation, but in a chaotic swarm that somehow functioned with perfect efficiency. A massive geometric dreadnought, larger than anything previously encountered, emerged from twisted space. Its weapons charged with enough power to crack the station in half. Every defending ship immediately moved to intercept, but they were too far away. Then something extraordinary happened. A small human ship, barely larger than a shuttle, accelerated directly at the dreadnought. The pilot's voice crackled over open channels. "This is Jenny Martinez, age 16, flying the family mining skiff Lucky Strike. I've got about 2 tons of mining charges and a really stupid idea. Someone tell my mom I love her." "Negative. Lucky Strike!" Admiral Chen's voice carried desperate authority. "Break off immediately." "Sorry, Admiral, but you taught us yourself. We are dangerous so others don't have to be." The tiny ship plunged into the geometric dreadnought's main weapon port just as it fired. The mining charges detonated inside the vessel, causing a chain reaction that tore the massive ship apart from within. The Lucky Strike vanished in the explosion, but the station was saved. For a moment, space fell silent except for the debris of battle. Then, one by one, the remaining geometric ships began to retreat. They fled not in organized withdrawal, but in panic, their formation completely broken. Human ships pursued relentlessly, ensuring none escaped to threaten others. As the last geometric vessel vanished into twisted space, a ragged cheer arose from the human fleet. It was picked up by the alien vessels, spreading throughout the entire defensive force. They had won, but the cost was evident in the debris field surrounding the station. In the conference hall, the assembled representatives stood in stunned silence. They had witnessed humanity at its most terrible and most noble. They had seen ordinary humans throw themselves into certain death to protect strangers. They had watched traders become warriors, children become heroes, and an entire species unite in defense of others. That, Thylex said quietly, is what humans are. They are the monsters under the bed that hunt other monsters. They are the dragons that guard the village. They are dangerous, yes. But they choose to use that danger to shield those who cannot shield themselves. The Korvath representative stepped forward slowly. How many humans died today protecting this station? Admiral Chen's voice came over the communication system, heavy with grief, but touched with pride. Current count stands at 47 confirmed losses, with another 12 missing. Their names will be remembered. 47 humans died protecting a station full of species that fear them, the Korvath said slowly, including one child who... His voice broke slightly. Who saved us all? Her name was Jenny Martinez, Chen said firmly. She was planning to study xenobiology, wanted to find ways to help species adapt to harsh environments. Her mother asks that if you wish to honor her memory, you support the Jenny Martinez Scholarship Fund for Interspecies Medical Research. The Korvath Trading Guild will fund it completely, the representative said immediately, and we formally request an alliance with humanity. One by one, other representatives stepped forward. The Villani offered technological exchanges. The Practori proposed trade agreements. Even the isolationist Sharodi expressed interest in cultural connections. The geometric threat had done what decades of human diplomacy couldn't, shown the galaxy that humanity's strength was matched only by their willingness to use it for others. Thylex felt a hand on one of his shoulders. Dr. Park stood beside him, tears running down her face as she watched the various species come together. "Thank you," she whispered, "for giving them a chance to see us as we really are." "I simply told the truth," Thylex replied. "You showed them who you are." 3 months later, Thylex stood on the bridge of his ship once more, but this time, everything had changed. The vessel had been refitted with human improvements, its crew now including several human exchange officers. They were part of a joint task force hunting the remaining geometric ships, protecting trade routes that now bustled with interspecies commerce. Kryn worked at the navigation station alongside a human officer named Lieutenant Jones. The two had developed an efficient partnership, combining Zalarian precision with human intuition. Throughout the ship, similar partnerships had formed. The engine room had become Sergeant Martinez's second home, where he worked with Zalarian engineers to create innovations that shouldn't have been possible. "Captain," Rodriguez called from her station. She had requested permanent assignment as liaison officer, a request Thylex had gladly approved. "We're receiving a distress signal. Sharadi colony under attack by geometric raiders." "Set course immediately," Thylex ordered. "Maximum speed." "Sir," Kryn noted, "that will take us through the Badlands. It's dangerous, filled with gravitational anomalies and radiation fields." "I know," Thylex said calmly, "but we're flying with humans now. We're dangerous, so others don't have to be. Rodriguez, notify the fleet. Tell them the Zalarians are responding to the distress call and would appreciate backup." Rodriguez smiled as she opened communications. "With pleasure, Captain." The ship plunged into the Badlands, navigating hazards that would have terrified Thylex months ago. Now, with human crew members treating it as an exciting challenge rather than a death sentence, he found himself caught up in their enthusiasm. They were all a little more human now, a little more willing to face danger for the sake of others. "Contact in 7 minutes, Jones reported. 3 geometric ships attacking the colony." Just 3? Martinez's voice came from engineering. Almost seems unfair. For them, I mean. Don't get cocky, Rodriguez warned, but she was grinning. Remember, we're setting an example for our Zalarian friends. Right, Martinez replied. Professional monster hunting? Got it. As they approached the besieged colony, Thylex reflected on how much had changed. The geometric threat remained, but it no longer seemed insurmountable. The galaxy had learned what humans had always known, that sometimes you needed monsters on your side. The difference was that humanity's monsters chose to be heroes. All hands, battle stations, Thylex announced. Let's show these geometric nightmares what happens when they attack the innocent. Human crews, you know what to do. Zalarian crews, follow their lead. Together, we are strong. The mixed-species crew responded with enthusiasm that transcended their origins. They burst from the Badlands like avenging angels, catching the geometric ships completely off guard. What followed was a battle that demonstrated the perfect fusion of human aggression and Zalarian precision. As the last geometric ship exploded and grateful messages poured in from the rescued colony, Thylex made a ship-wide announcement. Well done, all of you. We've proven today that our partnership is more than an alliance of convenience. We are family now, bound by shared purpose and mutual respect. Captain, a young Zalarian officer approached nervously. I've been thinking about applying to the Human Military Academy on Mars. Do you think... would that be acceptable? Before Thylex could answer, Rodriguez spoke up. Kid, they'd be lucky to have you. Fair warning, though. Earth gravity takes some getting used to, and they weren't joking about the drop bears in Australia being part of the training course. Drop bears aren't real, Jones protested. We made those up to mess with tourists. That's what they want you to think, Martinez called from engineering. Until one drops on your head during survival training. The bridge erupted in laughter, human and Zalarian voices mingling in shared amusement. It was a sound that would have been inconceivable just months ago, but now seemed perfectly natural. Later, as Thylex compiled his report for the Zalarian Trade Council, he struggled to capture the full scope of what had transpired. How did you explain that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their weapons or their willingness to fight, but their ability to make others feel protected? How did you describe the transformation that occurred when a species stopped seeing humans as monsters to be feared and started seeing them as monsters who chose to be guardians? In the end, he kept it simple. Humans are indeed the Deathworlders everyone fears them to be. They are violent, unpredictable, and capable of terrifying destruction. They are also loyal, creative, and unwavering in their protection of those they call friends. The question is not whether we should fear them, but whether we are wise enough to stand with them. For my part, I have seen what happens when the monsters under the bed decide to hunt other monsters. I have seen ordinary beings become extraordinary in the face of overwhelming odds. I have seen the galaxy unite against a common threat because humans showed us that being dangerous doesn't mean being evil. I recommend full alliance with humanity, not despite their nature as Deathworlders, but because of it. When the darkness comes, and it will come again, we want them standing with us. We want the monsters on our side. The Council approved the alliance unanimously. Across the galaxy, the story spread. Not just of the battles and the heroism, but of the fundamental truth Captain Thylex had discovered. Humans weren't dangerous because they enjoyed violence. They were dangerous because they had evolved on a world that demanded strength, then chosen to use that strength to protect others. They were the guardians the galaxy never knew it needed, the monsters who hunted monsters, the Deathworlders who had decided that their purpose was to ensure others could live. And somewhere in the void, geometric ships gathered and planned, unaware that they had already lost. They had made the fatal mistake of threatening those under humanity's protection. The Deathworlders were united now, and they had friends. The monsters were coming for them.